So we're back. We're exploring chapter 3 in the first unit of Fundamentals of Therapeutic Massage. This is part 2, and we're going to be talking about massage therapy career pathway as an employee. In the first video, we talked more about a comparison and contrast between the two. And so now we're going to drill down into those specifics for an employee. And let's share the screen. And here's where I always get into my little thing. So here we go. There it is. Okay, so chapter objectives: create a resume and a cover letter. Prepare for your interview, list elements included in an employee agreement, and you can read the rest of these as you go down. And in this section specifically, we're going to want to explore what is an excellent employee. Unfortunately, massage therapy and massage therapists have got a little bit of a reputation of not being a good employee. And so it has left a bad taste in potential employers' mouths. Remember, we talked in the ethics class or ethics presentation about everything that you do is going to affect others. And so a bad employee has been an experience with an employer, and it's going to be difficult for you to overcome that past. And so you need to understand how to work with that. So this is kind of nuts and bolts here. And you'll see all the different things that we're going to do here. And the focus is to really differentiate. You've made a decision. I want to be an employee. This is the way I want my career to unfold. Now, there are lots of resume and cover letter writing services. And the e-delivery of this content has made a difference. And the job sites like Indeed and not ZipRecruiter, but there are others, Glassdoor, they have changed how an employer might look for an employee or how an employee might look for a position. And so you're going to want to explore those, and you're going to want to contact your library. You'd be surprised what your local library can do to help you with this. There are templates that are available, and this website right here, Career One Stop, sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor, has a ton of guidelines about this aspect of seeking an employee position as a massage therapist. You're going to want to practice the interview, and what would be fun in the classroom is some role play around this, where one of you is the business owner and the other one is seeking a position. You can get an idea of what it's like to be on both sides of that. You can do a search on a browser, Google, Bing, whatever, on how to interview when you're playing the role of the business owner. And you can also find similar information on how to provide a good interview and how to interface with the potential employer. So communication becomes an issue. Dressing for success becomes an issue. We've got some pictures here in the book. Make sure that you are, the more conservative you are, the better. You can do what you want with that, but the more distance you are away from the norm in your appearance, the narrower your job search. You're going to have fewer business owners that are going to be okay with that. Please be clean. Don't wear a lot of perfume or essential oils or anything like that. So make sure these bullets are in play. Here are some typical interview questions that you can use to practice with. And you also are interviewing the employer. Now, you don't want to be obnoxious about this, but you should be learning about whether or not this is a place I want to work or you want to work. And I tell people over and over, you be an excellent employee and work for an excellent employer. And I tell employers, don't keep around a subpar employee. They're not worth it. Their behaviors, not necessarily them as an individual, but their behaviors are going to upset not just you, but anybody else that you have in the environment. And in the future, a way to generate additional income, you may want to become an employer. You might want to create an environment for massage therapists. So you want to, think about both sides of this. And then how do you end it? And what do you do next? And so you're going to kind of, again, I already mentioned some role playing and some rehearsal on that. Once you've had that initial interview and you're called back and you're trying to actually determine how this relationship is going to work, and it is a relationship, then you'll go through negotiating the terms of employment. This is where you find more information out about these bullet points. Be realistic. Make sure you understand how massage is a career within that area. It's going to be very different from urban to rural. There should be an employee handbook that describes a lot of this. You may be going through this with human resources, actually a department within the business or a contracted human resource person. And then when you are negotiating what you think is fair for compensation, you've got a better picture of that. So that's what this next section is understanding wages and payroll. And so we've got gross pay and net pay. And this is part of being self-employed too, because remember, when you are self-employed, you are the employer. You are your own employee. So it's important to understand payroll burden. And that is all of the expenses related to employees, not just the wages, and all employees within the environment, including your reception staff, some attendant staff, cleaning staff, all of that, along with the payroll taxes and the workers' comp insurance and the cost of maintaining payroll, all of that becomes the payroll burden. So in general, a viable business, and you want to work for a viable business. You want not to be in a risk situation where you're not sure that the business that you're going to be employed by is going to stay open. You want to make sure that they run a good business. And I'm just going to tell you right off of the top that the percentage of gross income, which is all of the income that is brought in to the business from services with massage or other services or even some retail, all of that is the gross income. And of that, the wage burden should not be more than 35%. So if we take this down to massage, if you are charging 75, if the business is charging $75 for a massage session, a third of that would be $25. And that is the most to maintain a solid business structure that an employer can budget towards wage burden. And in that $75, half is going to go to overhead expenses, marketing, advertising, facility, that sort of thing. So you've got to have a really, really good handle on this. And when you are self-employed, you can think you're making that whole $75 a spendable income in your personal life, just like you would a paycheck from an employer, and that is not true. When you are self-employed, you've got to put aside half of your gross business revenues for your overhead expenses, money that you're going to invest in your business. And you also have to put aside an additional 15% for payroll taxes and other types of insurance that the employer would cover or would cover a portion of it. And you've got to have money set aside out of that for your income taxes so that you can pay quarterly estimates. So let's be very real about this in the very beginning of this. So there are lots of data, there's lots of information in through here that can help you understand that. When should you ask for a raise? It would be similar if you were self-employed on when you're going to raise fees. Are you generating income for the business? Do you have really good retention? Are you performing better than anybody else within the facility in terms of bookings and client satisfaction? And then you have to stop and think about the wage burden. And you also have to think about the dynamics amongst the other therapists in the area, in the business. And the employer has to navigate that. And so differences in pay can create tension within the business structure amongst employees. So it's not as clear-cut as you might think. But if you're going to ask for a raise, then you need to justify it. You need to put your time in and show your employer that you are generating the income and the value that makes it a good decision, a good business decision for them to invest more in your wages. So here's some questions about that. Now, this is being filmed during the COVID pandemic, and this came right to the surface in the massage therapy community about being an employee versus being self-employed. You are eligible for unemployment benefits as an employee. You're not as self-employed. And so those that had worked as employees were able to navigate easier through the unemployment filing, etc. Whereas the self-employed people across the board, not just with massage therapy, it wasn't until the federal government stepped in and provided additional income for a short period of time. And it really wasn't unemployment, it was kind of a relief package. So one big advantage of being an employee is eligibility for unemployment. Now, your employer pays that for you. That is an additional value of being an employee. So on wages, on payroll, we have to pay a certain percentage into unemployment so that you're eligible for that. So again, not always understood. So this also feeds into what it's like if you're going to leave the job. Are you going to resign? Have you been fired? What is something called an at-will state? Michigan is an at-will state, which means an employer can ask you to leave the job without any cause, and you can leave without any cause. But that doesn't mean that it can be discriminatory. So as an employee, you have the option of an oversight or a protection into some of this because employers have to be compliant and in compliance with the Department of Labor. And so we go on to explain that. And then we also have to think about the work environment. The physical facility, how big are the rooms? Do you have hydraulic tables? Is there good air ventilation? What's the noise levels like? What is the management like? Is it an owner that is also the manager, or are they hiring a manager? There's a little bit of disconnect when that is the case. You should always be able to have access to the owner. You might have to put in a request, but they should never be totally absent from you. Most massage therapy businesses are small businesses. Franchises are individually owned small businesses. They're not a chain. They are not like a grocery store chain in our area like Kroger, or they're not like a department store chain like Walmart, where everything is centrally located. The franchise structure, we're all individually owned businesses, and we agree to work together under the brand of a particular franchise. And there are business advantages to that. But we set our own fee structure, our own pay structure, all of that. And there are some excellent franchise owners, and there are some that aren't very good. And so you want to think about that. Also, within a work environment, one of the biggest obstacles for it being a really supportive environment are the other people in the environment. Gossip, cliques, people that are messy and don't do their due diligence in cleaning up after themselves, people that whine all the time. Don't be that. Don't do that. That is unethical and unprofessional to be that type of an employee. And don't feed into others that do that. And hopefully your employer will move those people out of the business. But if it becomes so toxic, you may have to move yourself out of the business and find another place of employment. So these are characteristics of a great employee. This box here actually goes through and explains what a chain is versus a franchise. And this language is very confusing in the massage world. People don't understand this. So make sure you read that. Being employed in a franchise or a spa is an excellent option for an entry-level career position and for a long-term career position. So here continues with the list of being a great employee. How How are you doing when you measure yourself up on that? And then what's a great employer? What are the measuring points on that as you're making decisions? So employers shouldn't gossip. Employees shouldn't gossip. We shouldn't bully. There should be no harassment. We need to be kind. We need to be understanding. But we also it's also okay to expect others to do that. So compare yourself to these lists. And here's an example of how this can play out. I'll read the first one here. The workplace is noisy because of new construction in an adjacent office. This falls under the category for the employer, creates and maintains a great employee experience, including the provision of up-to-date and ergonomically supportive treatment rooms, equipment, needed supplies, and a healthy work environment. However, in this situation, so you can go and complain to the employer about this, but in this situation, there's really nothing the employer can do about that. And it's probably a self-limiting situation. And so, you know, you have to decide if I'm going to have a problem with something, is it solvable? Sometimes it's not. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're reading through these examples and coming up with examples of your own. So this is what employers really don't like about employees: being late, taking extended breaks, not showing up and not calling in, coming in and not being prepared, being a know-it-all or being overly aggressive, whining and complaining, having a cloud of drama surrounding you, calling in sick when you're not really sick, but also coming into work when you are sick and exposing everybody else, saying, not my job. You know, so let's say that the bathroom needs to be checked in the facility, and maybe the person that is doing that is really busy doing other things. Go do that. That's part of being a good employee. Using your electronic devices when other tasks need to be done. And not following the rules and acting entitled. Believing oneself to be inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. As you can see, as an employer, I would be, you know, these really can get my fascia in a twist. Now, employees have things that they don't like about employers as well, and employers should not do these things. And if they are confronted appropriately with a well-planned discussion about this in private, they should respond. So practicing favoritism, micromanaging. You gotta do it like this and like this and like this and like this. Not understanding massage therapy. Now, I'm a massage therapist and I own a massage therapy business and I own a massage school and I still practice massage as self-employed. I get it. I didn't get being a receptionist. So I did that job at our spa so that I understood what that was like. Changed my whole perception on that. So this can be difficult and require some education. Treating staff disrespectfully. Nobody should do that. Nobody. behaving in ways that are unreasonable, selfish, manipulative, and bullying. A real power struggle in there. Now, sometimes people are at their wits' end, and they're going to maybe be unreasonable, or they're going to be reactive. However, that should not be the general way things go. Engaging in public correction and blaming. Refusing to talk to people on the phone or in person. Not being present in the business. Even if they have multiple locations and they have managers in place, they should still be available. Not helping or pitching in when it's busy. Going back to having the bathroom checked. If I am there and I see that that needs to be done and everybody else is productively engaged, then I should go do it. Themselves breaking rules that employees are expected to provide, and them acting entitled. If you've got somebody that's like this is a toxic employer, don't work for them. At the same time, employers don't have to keep you around if you're a pain in the gluteus maximus. Okay. That is going to complete this segment of what it's like to be an employee. And we will end this video. And when we come back, we will talk about being self-employed. And here we go.